My name is Richard Hayes. I'm 62 years old, born and raised in Ohio, and if there's one thing life has taught me, it's this: blood doesn't always mean loyalty. Family can cut deeper than any stranger ever could, and sometimes the people you give your life for are the very ones who'll try to take it. I never thought I'd be telling this story, not about neighbors, not about enemies, but about my own daughter and her husband. I gave them everything I had, every sacrifice, every ounce of love. And still, when I refused to give them what they wanted most, they turned on me like wolves. Dad! You're gonna sign those papers, or I swear. My daughter Amanda's voice was shrill, dripping with fury. Before I could answer, I felt a sudden, crushing blow across my back. A wooden hunter stick, the kind you mount on the wall for decoration, smashed into me, sending me stumbling forward, gasping for air. It wasn't a burglar. It wasn't some random thug. It was my own son-in-law, Derek, gripping that hunter's club in his hands like he'd been waiting years for this moment. His eyes were wild, his jaw clenched, and I could see it in his face. This wasn't a scare tactic. He wanted to break me. Amanda stood there, her face twisted with rage, screaming at me. You've been holding out on us for years. You think you're gonna take your money to the grave? It's ours, Dad. You owe me that much after all the years I put up with you. Another strike came down across my arm. Pain shot through me so fierce I thought the bone had snapped. I staggered, but I refused to go down. My blood boiled, not just from the blows but from the betrayal staring me in the face. This was my daughter, the same little girl I once rocked to sleep, the one I carried on my shoulders at the county fair, the one I defended when kids teased her in middle school. And here she was, screaming like a stranger, demanding my life savings as though love had a price tag. You think beating me is gonna get you a dime? I growled through clenched teeth, clutching my bruised arm. You've lost your mind, Amanda. Shut up, old man. Derek snarled, swinging the stick again. This time I caught it, the impact rattling through my bones. My hands burned, my muscles trembled, but I held on. For a moment, it was the two of us locked in a savage tug of war, a 62-year-old father against a 35-year-old man built like a linebacker. Amanda screamed louder, her fists pounding against my chest as she tried to push me back. Give us what we deserve. You can't take it with you. Deserve. That word rang in my ears like a curse. Deserve? What exactly had they done to deserve the roof I kept over their heads when they fell behind on rent? Or the groceries I stocked in their pantry when Derek couldn't keep a job? Or the countless times I paid their bills while they lived like royalty off my back? They didn't want help anymore. They wanted control. Derek wrenched the hunter's stick free and swung again. This one caught me across the temple. My knees buckled, and warm blood trickled down my face. The room spun, but I refused to fall. Something inside me, something primal, something furious, rose up and screamed louder than the pain. I shoved Amanda back, my hands trembling but strong. I pointed at Derek with all the fire left in me. You lay one more hand on me, and I swear, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Derek smirked, circling me like a predator. You don't scare me, old man. You've been sitting on your little fortune while we scrape by. You think you're gonna just leave it to rot in the bank? No. We're taking it now. Tonight. His words sliced deeper than the blows. Fortune? I had no fortune, just years of hard work, savings tucked away for emergencies, for medical bills, for the end of life every man eventually faces. I had security, not luxury. But in their greedy eyes, that was treasure waiting to be plundered. Amanda's voice cracked with venom. You always loved control more than me. You loved your money more than your own daughter. Well, now it's ours. Whether you like it or not. Her words hurt worse than Derek's blows. But even as my vision blurred, I knew the truth. This wasn't love. This wasn't family. This was greed wearing my daughter's face. The fight raged on. Derek lunged at me, and instinct took over. I sidestepped, grabbed the corner of the heavy oak table, and rammed it into him with everything I had. He stumbled back, crashing into the wall, cursing as he dropped the hunter's stick. For a moment, the weapon clattered on the floor between us. Amanda dove for it, but I was faster. My fingers closed around the smooth wood, slick with my own blood. I rose, holding it steady, breathing hard, my chest pounding like a war drum. For the first time, I saw fear flash in Derek's eyes. "You want my money?" I thundered, my voice echoing through the small living room. "Then you're gonna have to kill me for it. Because I'd rather die standing than hand over 1 penny to ungrateful leeches like you." Amanda's face twisted, her eyes narrowing with rage. "Don't tempt me, Dad. Don't you dare tempt me." The room was thick with silence for a moment, broken only by the sound of my ragged breathing and Derek's angry growl. My hands shook, but not from weakness. From fury. From heartbreak. From the unbearable realization that my own flesh and blood had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. And then, just like that, the world shifted. The front door slammed open, and a neighbor's voice boomed from the porch. "Richard? You okay in there?" I heard shouting. Amanda froze. Derek clenched his fists, his eyes darting toward the door. For one brief second, their bravado cracked. And in that second, I saw the truth. They weren't fighters. They weren't warriors. They were cowards, bullies who thought an old man was easy prey. I stood taller, despite the blood running down my face. "Get out of my house," I spat, my voice hoarse but unyielding. "Both of you. You've shown me exactly who you are. And I promise you, karma doesn't forget." And I meant it. What they did to me tonight was just the beginning. But life has a way of evening the scales, and what they had coming was far worse than anything they tried to do to me. This was just the beginning of my story. But let me tell you something, greed always destroys the greedy, and betrayal never goes unpunished. If you've ever felt stabbed in the back by the people you trusted most, then stay with me. Because what happened next will prove that karma may take its time, but it never loses an address. The neighbor's voice broke through the chaos like a thunderclap. "Richard?" I said, "Are you okay?" Amanda's eyes darted toward me, then to Derek. Panic flickered across her face, but only for a moment. Then she did something I'll never forget. She widened her eyes, let out a shrill scream, and dropped to her knees. "Help! Somebody help! He's gone crazy," she cried, her voice sharp enough to pierce through the walls. My stomach twisted. "What? Gone crazy?" She was painting me as the villain. Derek caught on instantly, pressing his hand to his chest like he was a wounded soldier. He snapped. Derek shouted toward the open door. He tried to attack us with a weapon. I nearly dropped the hunter's stick still clenched in my hand. The room spun again, this time not from the blow to my head but from the gut-wrenching realization of what they were doing. They were flipping the story. They weren't just greedy, they were cunning. The neighbor, Mr. Lawson, stepped inside, his eyes bouncing between me, covered in blood, and Amanda, who now pretended to sob into her hands. Derek clutched his side, wincing dramatically. "What in God's name happened here?" Lawson demanded, his voice shaking. "She's lying," I snapped, my voice ragged but firm. "They came at me. Derek hit me with this." I lifted the hunter's stick, though I could see how it looked, a bloodied 62-year-old man holding a weapon while his daughter knelt crying on the floor. Amanda's crocodile tears streamed down her face as she clung to Lawson's arm. Daddy just snapped. He started screaming about money, about how we didn't deserve anything. We tried to calm him down, but he grabbed that stick and she broke into a sob, burying her face. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. Money. That's what they were twisting this into. A fight about money. Lawson's eyes narrowed at me, suspicion creeping in. "Richard, you need to put that down. Right now." "I didn't start this." I barked, my voice hoarse but burning with truth. "They ambushed me. Look at my face, look at the blood. You think I did this to myself?" But Amanda's performance was flawless. She shook her head violently, pointing at me with trembling fingers. You always said you'd rather die than let go of your money, Dad. You said it tonight. Now you're proving it. Please, somebody call the police before he kills us. The words sliced through me. Before he kills us. My own daughter. Derek backed her up with a sneer. Yeah, call the cops. Let them see what a violent old man he really is. The room tilted. My vision blurred from the blow to my temple, but my fury sharpened everything else. They weren't just stealing from me, they were erasing the truth, painting me as the monster in my own home. I dropped the hunter's stick on the floor with a loud clatter, raising my hands in surrender. Fine. Call the police. Call them right now. Let's see who ends up in handcuffs when they hear the truth. Lawson hesitated, his phone halfway out of his pocket. His eyes bounced between us, me, the bloodied father, Amanda, the weeping daughter, Derek, the supposed victim. His face was torn with confusion. I'm calling, he muttered finally, pressing 911. The next 20 minutes were a blur of sirens, flashing red and blue lights, and officers stepping through my doorway with sharp, skeptical eyes. Amanda put on a performance worthy of an award, trembling hands, shaky voice, telling them how I snapped and tried to attack them with the hunter's stick. Derek showed them his side, rubbing it like he'd been beaten half to death. And me? I stood there, blood dripping down my temple, my arm swollen, my breath shallow. I told them the truth. Every word of it. How Derek struck me first, how Amanda demanded money, how the fight began because I refused to hand over my life savings. But here's the cruel thing about truth, it doesn't always shine brighter than a good lie. The officer, a tall man with gray at his temples, eyed me carefully. Mr. Hayes, we're gonna need you to come with us to the station for questioning. We'll sort this out, but right now, we've got conflicting stories. Amanda gasped softly, as though wounded by his words. Please, officer, just don't let him near us again. I'm terrified. She clung to Derek like a child, her body shaking dramatically. My fists clenched. My chest burned. But I swallowed the fire because I knew the truth would outlive their lies. It always does. They put me in the back of the cruiser. Not Amanda. Not Derek. Me. The father who had sacrificed decades for his daughter. The man who bled on his own carpet while the liars stood in his living room free as birds. At the station, I told my story again and again, each word steadier than the last. By the time they let me go that night, I was exhausted, battered, and broken-hearted. But I wasn't defeated. No. I was more awake than I'd ever been in my life. Because that night, sitting in a cold police lobby with my head bandaged and my heart shattered, I made a vow. I would not let Amanda and Derek win. Not with lies. Not with violence. Not with greed. They wanted my money? They wanted to break me? Fine. They'd soon learn what happens when you turn on the very man who gave you everything. Karma might take her time, but I knew deep in my bruised bones that she was already on her way. I barely slept that night. The sting of the blows still throbbed in my bones, but what cut deepest wasn't the pain, it was Amanda's voice echoing in my head, spitting out those words like venom. You loved your money more than your own daughter. That wasn't true. It had never been true. Every dollar I earned in my 62 years, every long shift I pulled at the steel plant, every weekend job I took fixing old cars, it wasn't for me. It was for her. For Amanda. For the little girl who used to color me Father's Day cards with crayon hearts and call me her hero. But heroes don't bleed on their living room floor while their daughters cry lies to the police. Heroes don't watch their children transform into strangers driven by greed. That morning, as I sipped coffee with a swollen jaw and a bandaged temple, I knew something had snapped, not in me, but in us. The bond between father and daughter was broken. And nothing would glue it back. The phone rang around noon. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I needed to. On the other end, a lawyer's voice greeted me politely. Mr. Hayes, this is Attorney Collins. I've been contacted by your daughter and her husband, Amanda and Derek. They're filing a petition for guardianship over you, claiming you're no longer mentally fit to handle your finances. The mug nearly slipped from my hands. Guardianship? Mentally unfit? What did you just say? I growled, the heat rising in my chest. He cleared his throat. They're arguing that last night was evidence of erratic, dangerous behavior. They claim you've been unstable, that you attacked them, and they're requesting control over your assets for your own safety. I gripped the phone so tight my knuckles went white. First they tried to beat me into submission. Now they were trying to steal everything legally. I'm not crazy, I said flatly. I believe you, Collins replied carefully. But they're moving fast. If the court grants them temporary guardianship, they'll gain access to your bank accounts, your property, everything. You'll need to fight this in court. My jaw tightened. Fight. That word sparked something in me again. Last night, I fought for my life. Now I'd fight for my legacy. After the call, I sat in silence for a long time. My house felt smaller, colder. Amanda's laughter as a child echoed in my memory, overlapping with the sound of her screaming at me just hours ago. My chest ached, but my mind sharpened. They thought they could humiliate me. Beat me. Strip me of my dignity and steal my life's work. But here's the thing about greed, it blinds people. Amanda and Derek thought they were clever, but they didn't realize something crucial. I had lived through real storms, layoffs, recessions, my wife's passing, years of scraping to keep food on the table. Compared to that, this was just another battle. And I was not about to lose. A week later, I sat in court. Amanda and Derek walked in hand, dressed like saints. Amanda wore a modest blue dress, her hair pulled back neatly, her expression soft and sad. Derek wore a suit, his face clean-shaven, his demeanor humble. To anyone else, they looked like the perfect concerned family members. But I knew better. Behind Amanda's crocodile tears was calculation. Behind Derek's polished act was hunger. Their lawyer painted me as a bitter old man, unstable and paranoid. Amanda even took the stand, her voice trembling as she said, "I love my dad. I really do. But he's not well. He threatened us with a weapon. He's been getting worse. We're just trying to protect him." I wanted to scream. To stand up and shout that it was all lies. But I stayed quiet, watching. Because sometimes silence is more powerful than rage. When my turn came, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I looked the judge straight in the eye and said, "I worked 40 years in steel mills and garages. Every dollar I saved was through sweat and sacrifice. My daughter and her husband came to my home and demanded I hand it over. When I refused, they attacked me. I didn't snap. I defended myself. And now they want to strip me of the only thing I've earned, my independence. I may be 62, but I am not senile. I am not unstable. I am not theirs to control." The judge studied me for a long moment. Then he turned to Amanda and Derek. "You're asking for guardianship based on one incident with conflicting accounts. That's not sufficient evidence. Petition denied." Amanda's face dropped. Derek's jaw clenched. And right then, I saw it, the first crack in their armor. They had lost this round. But I knew them well enough to know they wouldn't stop. Greed never stops. It only grows hungrier. As I walked out of that courtroom, I made another vow. I wasn't just going to defend myself anymore. I was going to teach them a lesson. A lesson they'd never forget. Because here's the truth. When you raise your hand against the very person who gave you life, you're not just fighting flesh and blood. You're fighting against the very foundation of love. And no one wins that fight. Not in the end. Karma may be slow, but she's steady. And she was already on their trail. It didn't take long for the masks to start slipping. Amanda and Derek walked out of that courthouse with stiff smiles, pretending like they hadn't just been humiliated. But underneath, I could see it, the fury in Derek's clenched fists, the bitterness in Amanda's tight jaw. They weren't done. Not by a long shot. A week later, I heard the first whispers. Derek's car had been repossessed. His flashy SUV, the one he used to drive around town like he owned the streets, was gone. The bank had finally caught up to him. At first, I thought maybe it was coincidence. But then, 2 days later, Amanda showed up at my house uninvited, her arms crossed, her eyes cold. "You think you're smart, don't you?" she hissed the moment I opened the door. I didn't answer. I just leaned against the frame, letting her words spill out like poison. "You think you embarrassed us in court? That judge only believed you because you put on your little poor me act. But we're not done. Derek's got connections. We'll get what's ours one way or another." I wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because of how blind she was. She really thought the world owed her my sweat, my blood, my life's work. I said nothing, only closing the door slowly in her face. And as it clicked shut, I heard her muffled scream, "This isn't over, Dad." But here's the thing, it was already starting to be. The cracks widened quickly. Derek, who hopped from job to job because he couldn't hold his temper, finally burned his last bridge. He got into a shouting match with his boss, and just like that, he was unemployed again. The bills piled higher than their lies. Rent was late, utilities overdue, and I heard from a friend in town that Amanda had started pawning jewelry to cover their debts. And yet, instead of humbling themselves, instead of admitting their greed had poisoned them, they pointed their fingers at me. "He could help us, but he won't," Amanda sobbed to a mutual family friend at the grocery store. "My dad has money. He's just selfish. He's leaving us to drown." Selfish. The word stung, not because it was true, but because it was the farthest thing from truth. Selfish would have been keeping my money for myself all those years I paid their rent, stocked their fridge, and bailed them out of credit card debt. Selfish would have been saying no back then. But I didn't. I said yes, over and over, until my yes almost killed me. Now my no was the only thing saving me. Weeks passed, and I noticed something strange. The more they lashed out, the more the town began to see through them. At first, people bought Amanda's story, the poor daughter with the unstable father. But lies have a way of unraveling when you wear them too long. Derek's unemployment became public, their eviction notice showed up taped to their door, and neighbors started whispering. "They say he hit his father, not the other way around," I overheard one afternoon while passing through the hardware store. "They used to borrow money all the time." "Maybe that's what this is about," another voice added. I didn't spread those rumors. I didn't have to. Truth has a way of crawling out from the shadows all on its own. But karma wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. One night, around midnight, I was woken by frantic pounding on my door. When I opened it, Amanda stood there, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her hair a tangled mess. "Dad, please," she begged, her voice breaking. "They're gonna shut off our power. Derek's trying to sell his tools just to get cash. We don't have anywhere else to go. Just, please, give us something. Just this once." Her eyes were desperate, but I saw it clearly now, it wasn't love in those eyes. It wasn't even shame. It was greed wrapped in panic. I stepped back, shook my head slowly, and said, "Amanda, the last time you were in this house, you tried to beat me with your husband. You lied to the police. You stood in a courtroom and painted me as a monster. And now you want my help?" She dropped to her knees right there on my porch. "Please, Dad. You don't understand. Derek's been talking to people he shouldn't, loan sharks. If we don't come up with the money, they'll come after us." For a moment, my heart ached. Not for Derek, I had no pity left for him, but for Amanda. My daughter. The girl I had once cradled in my arms, now reduced to begging because of choices she made. But pity is not the same as foolishness. "I warned you," I said quietly. "Karma never forgets." And then, with a heavy heart, I closed the door. I heard her sobbing on the porch for 10 minutes before she finally stumbled away into the night. That was the last time she came to me willingly. What happened after that was out of my hands. Derek's gambling debts caught up with him, and one morning, word spread through town like wildfire: he'd been jumped outside a bar, beaten badly, left with broken ribs and a black eye. Amanda showed up at the hospital, screaming at the nurses, demanding special treatment. But the doctors didn't bend for her. They treated Derek like any other man who brought his ruin upon himself. I didn't visit. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew my presence wouldn't heal him. It would only fuel their fire. And as I sat alone that night, sipping tea by the window, I realized something profound. Karma wasn't mine to deliver. It wasn't my stick or my fists or my money that would break them. It was their own choices. Their own greed. Their own lies. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to lift a finger. Life was already teaching them the lesson I couldn't. And yet, something told me this was just the beginning. They say rock bottom changes people. Some wake up and climb back. Others dig deeper, clawing into darkness. Amanda and Derek chose the second path. Weeks after Derek's beating outside that bar, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd learned. Maybe life had finally slapped enough sense into them. But I was wrong. One cold Friday night, I heard the crunch of gravel in my driveway. My gut told me something was off before I even looked out the window. Derek's beat-up sedan sat crooked at the edge of the yard, its headlights dim, one of them cracked. The doors slammed, and then, fists. Heavy fists pounding on my front door. "Open up, old man." Derek's voice roared through the wood. His tone was raw, desperate, unhinged. Amanda's shrill scream followed. "Dad! We're not asking anymore." The hairs on the back of my neck stood straight. This wasn't a visit. This was a storm. I locked the deadbolt, my hands trembling. "Go home, Amanda. You're not welcome here anymore." Her response was a scream that pierced through me like glass. "You don't get it. We don't have a home. They're coming after us. Do you want to see your daughter dead in a ditch because you wouldn't lift a finger?" My chest tightened. I hated her words. I hated how she used guilt like a weapon sharper than any knife. Derek's fists pounded harder, each hit rattling the frame. "We know you've got money in there, Richard. You're not taking it to the grave. You're giving it to us, tonight, or I'll." The sound of shattering glass cut him off. Amanda had thrown a rock straight through my living room window. Glass rained across the carpet, sparkling in the moonlight like a cruel kind of confetti. My blood boiled. Enough was enough. I grabbed the phone and dialed 911, my voice steady despite the chaos. "This is Richard Hayes. My daughter and her husband are trying to break into my home. Send police immediately." As I spoke, Derek's voice thundered through the broken window. "You think the cops scare me? You think they'll protect you forever? This ends tonight, Richard. Give us what's ours." I slammed the receiver down and grabbed the hunter's stick, the same one Derek had used against me weeks earlier. My grip tightened around it, not out of rage this time, but survival. Within seconds, I heard the scrape of the back door. Derek was trying to force it open, cursing under his breath. Amanda screamed again, her voice cracking like a whip. "Dad, please. Just give us the money. We'll disappear, we'll never bother you again. You owe me this much." Her words echoed in the house like poison. "You owe me." No, I thought, clutching the stick tighter. I owed her nothing anymore. The door burst open, splintering wood flying across the kitchen floor. Derek stumbled inside, his face twisted with madness. Amanda followed, her eyes wild, her hands trembling. "Where is it?" Derek demanded, his chest heaving. "The cash, the accounts, tell me where it is or I swear." I raised the stick. My voice shook, but my words were steady. "You take one more step, Derek, and you'll regret it." Amanda's lip quivered. "Dad, stop this. We're your family. You can't fight us. You're old, you're weak. Family doesn't break down your door," I snapped. Family doesn't beat you bloody and lie about it in court. You stopped being family the moment you raised that stick against me. Derek lunged, his hands reaching for my throat. Instinct took over. I swung with every ounce of strength left in me. The hunter's stick cracked against his shoulder, sending him sprawling back into the kitchen counter. Dishes shattered, clattering to the floor. Amanda screamed, rushing to him, but he shoved her aside. His face twisted in rage. "You're dead, old man." Sirens wailed in the distance. The red and blue glow flashed across the walls. Derek froze, his chest heaving. Amanda's eyes darted to the window, panic flooding her face. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling. For one fleeting moment, I saw the fear. Not of me. Not of what they'd done. But of the law finally catching up. The door burst open again, this time with uniforms. "Police! Drop the weapon." I froze, the hunter's stick still in my hands. "It's me!" I shouted. "I'm the victim." They broke in. But Amanda was faster. She threw herself into the officer's arms, sobbing hysterically. "Please. He's lost it. He tried to kill us." My jaw clenched, fury boiling inside me. Again. Again, she flipped the story. Derek raised his hands like a martyr. "We just came to talk." He went crazy. The officer closest to me barked, "Drop the stick." I let it fall to the floor with a loud clatter. My hands went up, trembling with rage. "Check the doors. Check the glass. They broke into my house." The sergeant stepped forward, his flashlight sweeping the broken window, the splintered back door, the shattered dishes across the kitchen. His eyes narrowed at Amanda. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "why would you break into your father's home if you only came to talk?" Amanda's tears froze midstream. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Derek shifted uncomfortably, his lie unraveling before his eyes. The sergeant turned to me. "Mr. Hayes, are you pressing charges?" I stared at my daughter. My Amanda. Her face pale, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. I remembered the little girl who used to hold my hand crossing the street. The teenager who used to ask me to check under her bed for monsters. The young woman who once called me her best friend. But that girl was gone. Replaced by someone who would sell her soul for greed. "Yes," I said, my voice low but certain. "I'm pressing charges. Both of them." Amanda let out a scream that rattled the walls. "Dad, you can't do this. I'm your daughter." Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't look away. "No. Not anymore." The officers cuffed them both, their protests echoing into the night. Derek cursed like a madman, Amanda wailed like a betrayed child, but I stood still, my chest heavy, my heart broken. As the cruisers pulled away, I whispered into the night air, "Karma doesn't forget. And now, neither will you." Courtrooms smell like old paper and heavy silence. That's what I remember most when the trial began. The air was thick, charged, as if the walls themselves knew what was at stake. Amanda sat on the defense bench, her head lowered, her hands cuffed. Derek was beside her, jaw clenched, eyes darting like a cornered rat. They looked smaller somehow, not the wild, raging pair that had stormed into my home weeks earlier. Just two desperate people who had finally run out of excuses. The prosecutor laid it all out: breaking and entering, destruction of property, assault, violation of restraining orders. Derek's past brawl and Amanda's hysterical lies to police didn't help their case. The evidence was undeniable: the shattered glass, the splintered door, the 911 recording where my voice shook as I begged for help. And then, they played the police body cam footage. Amanda's face filled the screen. Her voice, high and panicked, cried out, "He tried to kill us." The jury watched her point at me with trembling hands. But then the sergeant's voice cut in, "Ma'am, why would you break into your father's home if you only came to talk?" The silence in that courtroom was louder than any scream. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just sat there, hands folded, feeling the cold weight of everything that had led us here. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly, the years heavy on my back. I looked at my daughter, but not the way I used to. This wasn't Amanda, my little girl. This was Amanda, the stranger who'd betrayed me. My name is Richard Hayes, I began, my voice carrying through the chamber. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because I need the truth on record. My daughter and her husband didn't just break into my house. They broke into my life. They stole my peace. They used my love as a weapon. Amanda's lip trembled. For a flicker of a second, I thought she might cry. I gave my daughter everything I could, I continued, steady now. But sometimes, no matter what you give, it's never enough. And when greed replaces love, you stop recognizing the person in front of you. That's what happened here. I don't ask this court for punishment. I ask it for protection from two people who no longer know the meaning of family. I sat down. The silence that followed was deafening. The jury didn't take long. Guilty. On all counts. Amanda gasped, shaking her head as if the verdict were some cruel trick. Derek slammed his fist on the table, earning himself a sharp rebuke from the judge. Order, the gavel struck. Amanda Hayes and Derek Carter, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in state prison for your crimes, with parole eligibility after 3. Court adjourned. The gavel's echo was final, sealing their fate. I thought that would be the end. But endings are rarely neat. A week later, I received a letter. It was from Amanda. The handwriting was shaky, messy, a far cry from the neat, bubbly script I remembered from birthday cards she once gave me. Dad, it began. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this. But I need you to know something. I didn't plan on going this far. Derek pushed, and I followed. Maybe because I was scared, maybe because I thought it was love. I don't know anymore. But the truth is, I hate what I'd become. And I hate that I turned you into my enemy. I wish I could turn back time, but I can't. I'm sorry. I folded the letter and set it aside. My heart ached, but the wound was too deep for an apology to mend. Words, after all, are cheap. Months passed. The seasons turned. The town moved on, but whispers about Amanda and Derek lingered. Their names became cautionary tales, murmured over cups of coffee, spoken in lowered tones. Did you hear? Amanda Hayes is in prison. Such a shame. Her poor father. Greed will ruin anyone. And they were right. I spent more time in the garden. The soil was honest, what you gave it, it returned. Plant a seed, tend to it, and it rewarded you with life. Unlike people, dirt never lied. Some nights, though, when the wind howled just right, I thought of Amanda as a little girl again. Running barefoot in the yard. Laughing at fireflies. Curling up next to me on the porch swing, whispering secrets only a child would think mattered. Those memories hurt. They always would. But I held on to them anyway, because they reminded me of who she used to be before greed poisoned her. The last time I saw Amanda was 2 years into her sentence. She had requested a visit. I almost said no. But curiosity, or maybe some shred of lingering love, made me go. She sat across from me, thinner than before, her hair tied back, her face pale. But her eyes, those were still Amanda's. Dad, she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in years, I saw the cost of her choices written across her face. I'm sorry, she said again. I know I can't fix it. But I had to tell you, face to face. You were the best father I could have asked for. I was the worst daughter you could have had. That's on me. Tears welled in my eyes. Not from forgiveness. But from grief. Grief for the daughter I once had, the one who never made it into adulthood. I stood to leave. She reached for the glass, her hand pressing flat against it. Dad, do you still love me? I hesitated at the door, my back to her. My voice was low, steady. I'll always love the daughter I raised. But I don't know who you are anymore. And then I walked away. Life goes on. Derek was released after 3 years, broke and bitter. Rumor has it he drifted town to town, never holding a job for long. Amanda served nearly her full sentence, then returned to society quieter, subdued, a shadow of who she once was. As for me, I found peace in small things. The garden. The quiet hum of the morning. The knowledge that, in the end, karma had worked the way it always does, slow, steady, but certain. Greed had taken my daughter from me. But it had also destroyed her, sparing me the burden of deciding her fate. She'd done that herself. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of fire and ash, I whispered into the wind. Karma doesn't forget. And neither do I. And for the first time in years, I felt lighter. Not healed. Not whole. But free.